to the Newcomer Network at Multicultural. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Hans Dannenberg Castellanos, and he's our ambassador. He's the ambassador of Dominican Republic in Canada. Welcome, Hans.
Hello, Jocelyn. How are you? Happy to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for letting us having you here in Manitoba.
My pleasure. My first time. I've just been in Canada for 3 months, and I visited Ontario, Quebec, Vancouver, and now I'm here in Manitoba and Winnipeg.
We are so happy to have you. We are so proud to have such a great ambassador.
Thank you. I always like to visit my communities where I served. And here I understand that in Winnipeg we have a growing community of Dominicans and more arriving all the time. And today is the gala dinner for the Dominican Christmas party. So, of course, I had to come. I had to be present and talk about my plans here in Canada, talk about how we can make the Dominican community stronger and make it, I'm very proud of the community here because it's a strong, professional, and entrepreneurial community. And we want us also to be able to unite more and in front of the Canadian authorities show that the Dominican community is what it is. It's a vital community, and we want to have a bigger voice in Canada. And I want to encourage all my Dominican citizens to be proud Canadians and keep connecting our country with Canada, because we as the embassy, as the government of Dominican Republic, we want Canada to see us as a strategic partner, not only as a tourism destination. We love that Canadians visit our country. We love that so many Canadians visit every year and that are always in our beaches and are very loyal. I mean, some Canadians have been going to my country for 30 years, and we love to hear those stories. But we also want to engage Canada. We are like-minded in political things, like we respect human rights, we respect diversity. We are a global player in the multinational organizations. We think alike in many of the policies, and we want to have more trade with Canada. We want Canada and the Dominican Republic to be strategic partner. Geographically located, we can be the hub for the Caribbean. We can be the hub for Central America. We are the biggest economy in Central America and the Caribbean. We have so many flights coming from Canada with tourists. Those flights need to go back with products, with avocados, with mangoes, with coffee, with cigars, with rum, with papaya, with dragon fruits and every type of fruits that Canadians need during winter and during the whole year. And of course, we can also buy products from Canada into Dominican Republic. So the trade should increase. The political activity between high-level visits from both countries should be there. And this would also be complemented by the great Dominican community that's growing in not only in Winnipeg. We've always had a Dominican community in Montreal, in Toronto and Ottawa, but now we see big communities in Calgary, in Edmonton, in Vancouver, in Halifax, in Moncton, New Brunswick. And we're very proud to see that Dominicans are here wanting to bring better life for their family, wanting to contribute to the economy of Canada and become part of society in Canada. So we want to see more Dominicans getting involved in Canadian politics, more Dominicans getting to be known in Canada. So as just like the diversity that Canada has, we want to be more part of that diversity.
Wow. We are so honored to have you in our Dominican Gala.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's my honor to dance some merengue and eat some good Dominican food in Winnipeg. I mean, it's not all the time that we can have some real authentic food and real authentic music from our country. And I hope that many people from other countries join us so that they could try our food and get the ways that Dominicans are. Because, I say that all the Caribbean islands are the same. We all have beaches. We all have tropical fruits. We all have good music. But it is the spontaneity of Dominicans that make the experience in Dominican Republic a lot different. When Dominicans come to our country, they feel at home, they feel safe, they usually meet someone and they feel like they've known them for years. And that's why they come back. And Dominican Republic, according to the World Tourism Organization, is one of the countries that has more repetitive tourism. And that's a big honor, because when somebody goes on vacation to your country and wants to go back, that means they had a very good time. And, a lot of people go to one country and been there, done that. They see it and they want to go somewhere else. But when you see so many tourists, especially Canadians, coming every year to Dominican, and even if they change the destination within the country, they still go to our country. They can go to Punta Cana, then Puerto Plata, then Samaná, then Bayaibe, but they're still in the Dominican Republic. And we value very much the economic impact that tourism brings to our community, to our country, the multiplying effect that tourism has in the most poorest of communities is very important to know. Every time a Canadian tourist goes to our country, it impacts the lives of many people, of the people that work in the hotel, people that work in the airports, people that are in immigration, in customs, the people that grow the fruits that are served in the buffet breakfast, people that are working in entertainment. Everybody in our country gets impacted by the positiveness of tourism. So every time a Canadian decides to travel to the Dominican Republic, it has an impact on people. And Canadians are in nature always worried about other human beings. So it's important that they know that they're not only there enjoying sun and beaches, but they're also impacting the lives of many people. And we value that. And that's why Canadian is so close to our heart. The tourism industry in Dominican Republic started with Canada, and we want to keep engaging Canada, not only in tourism. We want to engage Canada in more academic exchanges. We want more Dominican students to come to Canada. We want more temporary workers to come to Canada. We want Canada to sell more products from Canada to Dominican Republic, and also use our country as a hub. We have now direct flights to Santo Domingo with Arajet. It's the first time that two cities in Canada are connected to our capital, because most of the flights from Canada were to Puerto Plata, Samaná, and Punta Cana, which are the tourist destination. But now we have a connection to our capital. Now this flight not only connects Dominican Republic and Canada, it connects the whole of Latin America, because from Santo Domingo you can connect to Guatemala, Mexico, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Curaçao, Aruba, Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, Brazil. And it's important that Latin America feel that they have a way to connect. And hopefully we'll have an Arajet flight to Manitoba and to Alberta and to British Columbia in the future. That's what we're working for. If the flights from Toronto and Montreal are successful, we'll definitely look at other markets in Canada to connect our capitals, to connect Latin America through Santo Domingo for both passengers and cargo.
Wow, and we would be very happy to hear that also. Good. You know, we have been tracking your work for the last 3 months, and we have noticed how you have been supporting all the Dominican community in different countries, in different provinces. And we're so happy to see that. Can you tell us a little bit, because some people are confused with the role of an ambassador. So I would like you to share with us your role.
Okay, well, an ambassador is simply the representative of one government to another government. There are political ambassadors or diplomatic ambassadors, career ambassadors. Career ambassadors are people that work in the ministry, study international relations, and serve many governments and many presidents, regardless of the political affiliation. Political ambassadors are usually people that have been ministers, people that are active in a party, and they get a political prize. They are sent as consuls or as ambassadors to a certain country. In this case, I'm a career diplomat. So in Canada, we have sent a career ambassador here so that we can engage with Canada in a different way. I mean, when you have a political ambassador, they can be very good. Political ambassadors sometimes are as active as career ambassadors because they have direct lines to the president, because they're personal friends. But as a career diplomat, you also know the way to create the engagements by having agreements, by engaging ministries, parliaments. I mean, there's ways to diplomatically get closer to a country. And it's not only selling products and bringing tourists. You sometimes creating parliamentarian exchanges, relations between our parliament and Canadian parliament and provincial parliaments can create new opportunities for education, new opportunities for employment, new opportunities for trade, new opportunities for investment from Canada, and vice versa. So as a diplomat, we are the representative of the government of one country to another. We intermediate any agreements between the nations, but at the same time, the main purpose of diplomats and consular agents are to protect the Dominican citizens or the citizens of their country in the country they're serving. At the same time, help and serve the citizens of the country they're serving when they go to our country. So if somebody requires a visa to go to Dominican Republic because they're going for work purposes or or they're from a nationality that they're not Canadian citizens yet, but they live here, they want to visit and they need a visa, then of course we issue the visa in the consulates or the embassies. And at the same time, if any Canadian citizen gets in trouble in Dominican, we as embassy can try to mediate. And the same thing with Dominicans. If we have Dominicans that are put in prison for some reason, we'll try to mediate and help them get the legal representation that they might need. And we also try to protect Dominican nationals from sometimes people are human trafficking happens everywhere. Sometimes people can get brought into a country with false pretenses that they have a job opportunity that later does not exist. So we'll try to help those persons. So ambassadors are very active with government-to-government relation. We try to create relation between our Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Tourism of Canada, Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Energy of Dominican Republic. We try to do learn from best experiences, see how we can cooperate with each other. But at the same time, in this particular government, one of the emphasis of the Foreign Service has been to protect Dominican nationals abroad. So in a country as big as Canada, where there's Dominicans living in so different parts of Canada, which is lengthy in travel time, costly in tickets, we need to sometimes use social media. We need to use this type of programs like the one where I'm being with you now, so that Dominicans know what their diplomats are doing for them.
Yes, and I wanted to ask you a question about that, because in social media we posted a question box for people to ask things that they would like to know from you.
Okay.
And one of them is, what's the difference between a consul and the consulate and an ambassador? And you explain a little bit.
Embassies are always only in the capital of a country. Like our embassy is in Ottawa. And people say, well, why are you not in Toronto? Why are you not in Montreal? Well, in Montreal, Toronto, we have consulates. Because an embassy is the representative of the head of government in my country to the head of government to the country you're accredited. And where is the head of governance in Canada? Is in Ottawa. In Brazil is in Brasilia. In Australia is in
Sydney?
Not Sydney. Sydney is like Toronto. It's a big city.
Oh.
But the capital is Canberra, is the capital of Australia. So Canberra is very small. In South Africa is Pretoria. The capital where the government is, where the legislation is, where the parliament is in Pretoria, not in Johannesburg. Johannesburg is a big city. So sometimes countries have embassies. It's like Washington and New York. Everybody has an embassy in Washington because that's where the head of government is. But a lot of the business, a lot of the people-to-people contacts is in New York.
Yeah.
So you have a consulate in New York, but you have an embassy in Washington. Here you have consulates in Toronto and Montreal, or some countries have in Vancouver or other cities. But the embassy always has to be in the capital of the country so that you can relate to the ministers, you can relate to the parliamentarians, because our job is to create government-to-government contacts. Now, consulates are more focused in helping the citizens. If you're Dominican and you need to renew your passport, if you lose you're visiting Canada and you lose your passport,
job.
It's not the job of an ambassador. It's more the job of a consul or a consular agent in embassies. Because some countries, like for example, I served in India. In India, there was an embassy and there was no consulate. So when there's no consulate, then you have a consular section within an embassy. In that case, the embassy does the job of consular. In Ottawa, we have an embassy, but we also have a consular section. So Dominicans that need to get any documents, legalize any paperwork, or any Canadians that need a visa, they can also go to Ottawa, although we're an embassy, because we have a consular section within the embassy. But the consulates in Montreal and Toronto are the ones that deal directly with day-to-day problems of their nationals.
I hope we can have one here, or Saskatchewan, or Alberta, more in the middle.
Well, traditionally, I think there's potential to have a consulate in the future in either Calgary or Vancouver or even Halifax because of the growing number of Dominicans. But, the only way we know where the Dominicans are, if Dominicans register in the embassy, if we have a good census of how many Dominicans we have in a region. Because I cannot just say to my government, open a consulate in Vancouver. well, I have to bring numbers. I have to say, look, we have a large Dominican community in Vancouver, a large Dominican community in Winnipeg that requires services, and they cannot be traveling to Ottawa, Toronto, or Montreal because it's distance. But the only way we can know that is if Dominicans register in the embassy or the consulate as a resident of Winnipeg. The census in Canada will tell us how many Dominican nationals there are in the country. But once that Dominican becomes a Canadian citizen, he's no longer registered. Now that Dominican that's a Canadian citizen might still need services from us. They might still need a copy of their birth certificate. They might need to legalize a document if they're selling a property in their country. If their parents pass away and they need a death certificate from them for issues of heritage or inheritance. So although you're a Canadian citizen, you might still require a documentation from our embassy because that's your original place of birth. So unless you're registered with us, we don't know where the Dominicans are. And opening a consulate is costly. You have to, rent a property. You need to bring staff. You need to furnish that property. I mean, it's a monthly cost for a country to have an embassy and a consulate. So we cannot just open a consulate because I would like. I have 5 friends in Winnipeg. We need to justify that we have enough Dominicans in Winnipeg or enough opportunities for business and trade in Winnipeg to justify the cost of opening a consulate. So usually when you open a consulate, we need to have very good numbers of how many Dominicans or how many business opportunities there is. So how many companies are in Manitoba that invest in Dominican, that are traveling to Dominican and sending their executive for work visas. So if we don't have that information, it's hard to push the opening of a new consulate. I think there is potential to have a consulate in Vancouver, to have one in maybe Calgary or Winnipeg, and even in Halifax. But we need to have the numbers of the people. We need to organize better the data and the information of the companies in these regions that are investing in our country or are potential investors in our country, so that we can justify this concept.
Yeah, that question came from Alberta. Could you share with us some of the achievements? We know you have been working just for 3 months, but what achievements you can share with us?
I've only been here 3 months, and I just presented credentials last Friday to Governor General Mary J. Simpson. And the truth of the matter is that until you present credential, you really cannot engage any politically elected official. That means that I could not meet until last Friday any ministers, any parliamentarians, any premiers of provinces, until I presented credential and officialize my assignment as ambassador to Canada. Now, in the meantime, what you could do is meet your colleagues from other embassies and meet your community. So what I've done since I arrived is I've tried to visit as much Dominicans in Canada as possible, understand what they want, what they expect from their ambassador, what they expect from their Dominican diplomats here. I know there's a lot of people that say, oh, Dominican diplomats, they don't do nothing for us, or in the past, nobody has visited Winnipeg or nobody has visited Halifax. Well, the only way we can know what the expectations are from the community is if we engage with them. So I've always been one of those diplomats that like talking to the community.
I can see that. Like
to listen to the issues that we can be of help. We have a growing number of newcomers to Canada, and I would like to be able to, the embassy to be able to offer guidance so that people are not that are not deceived in any way when they arrive. Sometimes they can arrive and they can be deceived by landlords, by many things. So we would like to be able to know what are the issues that they had when they arrived, to try to see if we can help some way in preventing that to happening to newcomers. So I cannot say we have done any achievements because I've technically been ambassador only for 2 weeks. I've been visiting the communities. I've been visiting my colleagues to understand also how to deal with Canada. Every country has peculiarities on how to deal with government officials, how to engage, how to network, every country is different. I mean, sometimes everything. There are countries that you just send a note and immediately you get response. Other countries you need to network behind the scenes with businessmen, with people that are important in the community, so in order to get an appointment with a political officer. I mean, Canada, I think, is very straightforward. There's no behind the scenes. Everything you ask, you get. But then you also need to know, for example, one of the good feedback I've gotten from a lot of my colleagues is not only engage with Ottawa, engage with the provinces. If you want to have cooperation, engage with the premiers of all of the provinces, visit the provinces, and you will be surprised how much you can do bilaterally with provinces that you might not be able to do in Ottawa, because Ottawa, there's so many embassies trying to get a piece of the pie that when you go to a place like Regina in Saskatchewan, you might be able to have more access, be able to talk more directly to people and interest them more in your country in other ways than tourism. You can interest companies that might want to explore investing in Dominican Republic, people that might want to buy second homes, that it's easier to access them if you go to their place. I mean, when I was ambassador to India, there was 163 embassies in Delhi. And Latin Americans were just a little piece of the pie. We realized Latin American ambassadors got together and said, oh, we need to start getting out of Delhi. So we started visiting. We went to Chennai, we went to Hyderabad, we went to Punjab, we went to Gujarat, and we got many of the businesses and the trade we have with India and Dominican Republic comes from Gujarat, comes from Bangalore, comes from Kerala, not from Delhi, because in Delhi, there's too many people fighting for attention. But when we go to Kerala, or we go to Punjab, or we go to Bhopal or Bihar, we are the star of the show. Everybody receives us. We're in every newspaper. People get more attention on what we can offer as a country. And sometimes trade happens easier. So just like when I was in India, I was ambassador to India, and I covered 11 countries.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, that when a country is small and does not have money to have an embassy everywhere, they appoint an ambassador in one country and they concurrently accredit him to other countries. So when I was in India, I was accredited to Thailand, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Iran. And when I was in Russia, I was accredited to Uzbekistan, to Tajikistan, to Belarus, to Armenia, to Moldova. Well, in Canada, it's such a big country that I'm not accredited anywhere else. So in my mind, I'm seeing that every province is my concurrency. What did I do with those countries that I visited when I was in India? Well, the first thing I did was try to meet the head of government, meet the mayors, meet the chambers of commerce, go to the universities and see what academic opportunities you can get for my national, and visit the community. There's always Dominicans that lived in Bangladesh and Nepal. I would visit them. So I'm doing the same here. I plan to do the same here. Go to every province in Canada. Even if I hear that we have like 8 Dominicans in Yukon. So I'll visit Yukon. I'll try to meet with universities in Yukon to see if there's more opportunities for Dominican students to study in Yukon. We'll try to see what we can do, how we can interest Yukon to maybe buy our avocados, buy our pineapples, buy our mangoes. The
plantains.
The plantains. The Governor General of Canada, she asked me to visit Nunavut, and that they would love to have tropical fruits in Nunavut, her region. Yeah. So I'm planning to go and visit Nunavut and see how we can get some exchanges of trade with our products with Nunavut. Maybe we've never looked into Nunavut. Maybe we've always looked at Quebec. We've always looked at Ontario. So when you travel within the country, not only to meet the community, but to see opportunities in those provinces, new businesses might come our way, new opportunities might come for Dominicans, new trade opportunities might come for both countries. So this is what I want to do. I've only been here 3 months, but this is my plan, to visit as many provinces as I can and engage not only with Dominicans and not only with Canadians. There's a big Chinese Canadian community. There's a big Lebanese.
You're here.
This is a big Lebanese. There's a big Lebanese Canadian community. There's a big Armenian Canadian community. There's a big Iranian Canadian community. I want also to engage with them and tell them, look, you might not, Indians and Chinese, they don't like to go to the beach like Canadians do, but they like to go to the city. They like to see our culture. They like to go shopping. They like to see other things, casinos. So maybe we can grow our tourism markets in Canada by engaging the Chinese Canadians and the Indian Canadians to go to places that are not the traditional beach resorts. They might want to go to Santo Domingo, see our historical colonial zone, see our, see our first cathedral, first university, first street. We have a lot of history in Dominican Republic because the Dominican Republic was the first country of the New World, the first island where the Europeans settled. And we had an indigenous population there. And the Spanish came and created a new culture, a blend of European and indigenous. And then the African slaves came, and we are a mixture of colors and races. And thanks God, we don't have that racism and that prejudices in between countries that exist in other countries, because we have a little bit of everything. We are a rainbow of colors, a rainbow of nationalities. I myself, I come from German great-grandparents that went to Dominican Republic. We have so many Chinese Dominicans. We have Japanese Dominicans.
Yeah, so many people have been asking, but is he Dominican?
Yes.
This name and this
De
passport?
pura cepa. It's my father is from Puerto Plata. He's of German descent. So it's we have Dominicans from so many. Dominican Republic at one time received Polish immigrants, just like Canada. Received people from Spain, people from China, people from a lot of Lebanese, Palestinian, and Syrians. Our president is Lebanese Dominican. His father and grandparents were Lebanese, and he's Dominican, and he's the president of the Dominican Republic. And of course, we had the previous president, Hipólito Mejía. He had Spanish grandparents, and then we have so many different cultures that blend into Dominican Republic. I mean, having served in countries like we have Indian population in Dominican, that we had one of our editors of the newspaper was of third-generation Indians living in Dominican Republic. And people thought they were Dominicans. They never thought of them as Indian Dominicans, but he is of Indian descent. And like that, we have people of Jewish descent, people of Austrian. Our previous ambassador to Canada is of Jewish descent. And we have a mixture of population, and we're very proud of that, of that diversity that we have. Like Canada is so proud of their diversity, and that's why Canadians and Dominicans get along so well.
Yes, that's true. I know you have been visiting different provinces and have been in contact with Dominicans in Canada. So how do you see the engagement of the Dominican community with each other?
Well, I'm very proud of how well organized Dominican communities are around Canada. Here in Winnipeg, there's a Dominican Alliance, the one that's doing the party today. They've organized themselves. They do things together. They project the country and the culture in a very good way to the Canadians in Winnipeg and to other nationalities that live in Winnipeg and make Winnipeg their home. But I was in Vancouver recently in Surrey during Hispanic Month, and there was an amazing organization by the Dominican club there that they have organized a cultural day in Vancouver, and it was amazing. Same thing in Montreal.
Yesterday?
Yesterday I was in Mississauga, where there was a big Christmas event in Mississauga, and almost 100 Dominicans were there. But we also had people from Afghanistan, from El Salvador, from Venezuela, from Cuba, married to Dominicans, people that love Dominican. My best friend is Dominican. There was a guy from Afghanistan there whose wife or girlfriend was from Spain, and she had lived in Dominican, and her best friend was Dominican. And we had Colombians and Venezuelans and Salvadorians. We had Russians married to Dominicans, and Ukrainians married to Dominicans. So we're even diversifying even more in Canada. Once we get to Canada, we diversify.
Oh yes,
more.
we are.
Yeah. So I'm proud to see how Dominican communities here are organized, and it's important to continue being organized and continue to being united, because I believe Canada being so diverse and Canada being so big, it's important that our communities also become politically engaged in Canadian politics so that we can have a stronger presence in Canada. So unless people like you start running for being a MLA here in Winnipeg, and we have now a candidate for MLA in Halifax we're very proud of, and unless we see more Dominicans becoming parliamentarians and senators and congressmen and maybe ministers,
working for that,
we will not see our country more engaged with Canada. As ambassador, I will continue working for that Canada to see us more as a strategic partner in trade, in business, and in every aspect, because we have very many similarities. But we also want to engage provincially with all the governments of Canada.
Any challenges that you have noticed in with the Dominican community in here?
Well, the cost of airfare is high in Canada, so moving from Halifax to Vancouver is not only a lot of time, but it's a little costly. I mean, I've served in India. When you fly domestically, the prices are very low. In Russia, when you fly domestically, the prices were pretty low compared to international. Here, I think it's cheaper to go to the Caribbean than it is to move from Halifax to Vancouver or to go to the northeastern states. It's quite expensive. That's a challenge because embassies, people think sometimes that embassies have a tree full of money, and it's not. We have a budget. We have to go through that budget every month, and we have a travel budget. And if we have only $3,000 to travel, then a ticket to Nanywood is $2,000. I can only go once to one province in 1 month. So it is challenging to be able to access all Dominicans. That's why we use social media. That's why we come to TV shows like this.
Another question.
Yes, I know. That's why I'm answering that one. It's not that I want to be in the spotlight.
Yeah.
It's an easy way and an economical way to reach our communities through social media, through Instagram, through Telegram, through Facebook, through X called now. It's
everywhere.
So I mean, I personally only use Instagram and Facebook, but the embassy has other channels to reach
Twitter,
the Dominican, and we encourage Dominicans to follow us so that they know that we are working for the best of their needs and to meet their needs, and we're very open. We have a very open policy. Anybody that wants to visit our embassy, we're always going to offer them Dominican coffee and some maple cookies to give them a Canadian and Dominican touch. But we'll always be open to receive them, to listen what the problems they have. We also have an electoral board office in Canada. This year, Dominicans can vote if they register in the offices, in the consulate and the embassy. They're able to vote. You can also register, not necessarily to vote, but just to have a database of how many Dominicans are here, where they are, so that in case of a natural disaster, we can know where to go and assist Dominicans. When I was ambassador in India, because I had the Dominicans that were living in Nepal registered, I could easily access them when the earthquake happened. And I went to Nepal and we worked with the Spanish embassy. And because I had them registered in our embassy, we were able to locate them and we offered them trips back to Dominican Republic during the earthquake in Nepal. The same thing has happened when we've had other disasters in other countries. When we had the beginning of this tension between Russians and Ukraine, Russia and Ukraine, and we have a lot of Dominicans studying in Ukraine, and we had Dominicans studying in Russia. So, but the ones that were registered, we easily located them. We evacuated some from Ukraine. During COVID too. When I was in India, I had to evacuate Dominicans even from New Zealand. But unless they were registered, we didn't know where they were. So it's important to register, not for political reasons, not to vote for any particular president. It's mainly to have a data of where Dominicans are so that we can assist them if needed. Another thing I want to add, ambassadors are not representing one president. We represent the government of Dominican Republic. And if the people of Dominican Republic elect one president, even if half the country votes for them, when he becomes president, he represents the whole country. So as ambassador, I never ask anybody what political party they are. I don't care. I only care that you're Dominican. And I only care the fact that I have to assist you as a Dominican because I represent the president. The president is the president of all Dominicans. So I have to help all Dominicans regardless of their party. I have no intention to ask what party they serve. I'm not here to do political work. There has been ambassadors in the past or consuls that do political work because they're political appointees. But in my case, as a career diplomat, we want to help Dominicans, regardless of what party affiliation or if they don't want to ever vote. But it's always good to register in the embassy so that we know where they are.
Excellent. Can you share with us a little bit about the new foreign policy of the government for international relationship?
Well, the Dominican Republic, since this government started, has been very focused in diversifying our relations. For example, we just opened an embassy in Guyana. Why Guyana? Well, Guyana has a big growth right now. It's one of the biggest economic growth in South America. A lot of Dominican businesses are helping in the infrastructure and logistics constructions in Guyana. We're even bidding to handle the airport in Guyana. So, of course, we have opened an embassy to assist those businessmen that go to Guyana, assist Guyana in getting cooperation from us. And, of course, we're working at energy agreements between the two countries. We're opening an embassy in Saudi Arabia. Why? Because Saudi Arabia is becoming a very active country in the global south. Saudi Arabia wants to open an embassy in our country. We want Saudi tourists to come to Dominican Republic. Saudi is opening themselves for tourism, so we think that our expertise in tourism can be helpful for Saudi Arabia. We opened an embassy in Vietnam not too long ago, and Vietnam is one of the growing economies in Asia. I think that, unfortunately, a lot of the Latin American and Caribbean countries only look at U.S., only look at Canada, and only look at Spain. We have to, in this global world that we're in now, opportunities might arise in the remotest of countries. So we need to engage in multilateral affairs, in the organizations like the United Nations, where we vote for things that affect the whole world. And we have to have relations with every country on the system. But by engaging or opening an embassy in places like Vietnam, we can increase trade with Vietnam. We can increase opportunities of cooperation between the two countries. We opened an embassy not long ago in Turkey, and now we have a lot of Turkish tourists. We hope that Turkish airline flies to Dominican Republic in the future. Qatar, we have an embassy in Qatar for the last 15 years. Every day there's more engagement with Qatar. We have an embassy. In the last 10 years, we opened an embassy in United Arab Emirates. Of course, there's a growing increase of people, Dominicans living and working in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and having an embassy there helps them. So the more the world is becoming smaller by being more accessible through air travel, we must have more embassies. In the past, we only had embassies in Latin America, Spain, France, London, Canada, US. Now we have embassies in places like Vietnam, like India, like South Korea, Japan, and now we're opening Saudi Arabia. We have one in South Africa. We want to open one in Kenya. We want to open one in another part of Africa. We have in Morocco and Egypt. So every day our country is diversifying their international relations. We want to be a player in the geopolitical arena as a small country that receives a lot of tourism, that's friends with everyone, that is not engaged in any conflicts with any country in the world. We are friends with everyone, and we want to be seen like that in the world.
Wow. And we're so happy to hear that. Very, very happy. Hans, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all the support you give to all Dominicans. And we wish you all the best in this journey, and you can count on us.
Thank you. And I hope to be coming to Winnipeg more often and see more of the Dominican community in Winnipeg. I'm excited for this party tonight that we have, where more than 300 Dominicans are going to celebrate Christmas the Dominican way in cold Winnipeg.
Yes. Oh, in Winnipeg. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the non-Dominicans that are listening to me. If you've not been to Dominican Republic, please visit us. And if you're Lebanese Canadian and you have family in Lebanon, you can always meet in Punta Cana, or meet in Puerto Plata, or meet in Dominican Republic. Yes, the same with Indians, the same with Armenians, the same with Iranians. You can always meet in Dominican Republic.
Thank you
a good
so
way
much
for connecting families and connecting friends.
So thank you to our wonderful audience for being there with us, and see you in the next time. Bye.